I have the opportunity here to show you this website that I made for the Performing Transdisciplinarities project, and it's where much of the information and the research that the team has been working on is presented. And funnily enough, yes, it was late 2019 that I came on board with the project, and it was a year contract. So it ended in late 2020. And casting back to that period of time has been an incredibly challenging, a challenging feat, mainly because of so much has happened in between late 2020 and now, in my personal life and in my professional life, but also in the world. We had COVID, we had hailstorms, we had fires. So yeah, so just like it's funny just going through the stash of, say, screenshots from that period, eye-opening. But I thought while I did that, I kind of found and remembered a number of conundrums that I now see with some perspectives, especially when I think about what this project sort of sought to do in terms of its exploration of transdisciplinary practice. So I thought maybe that would be an interesting way to preface what this website ended up being, as yeah, you might learn a little bit about myself as a practitioner and the kinds of things that happen when you come to a project from a different discipline or from a set of disciplines that aren't necessarily totally related. So let's see if I can get to the next slide. Oh yeah, here we go. So like a lot of people who come to the digital humanities, my main gig is elsewhere. So in fact, I'm trained as an electronic media artist. Well, I spent the last, or not the last, but the first 15 years of my career pursuing art as a full-time profession. I did a number of things to pay the bills. And one was making websites, mostly for artists. And another was working in the basement of an antiquarian bookstore, being a research assistant and designer. So my boss at Horden House in Sydney used to make jokes about my strange double life, making circuits and writing code by night, and writing catalogue entries and taking photographs of first editions of things like Gould's Mammals by day. So having finished my PhD in art history, coming to the ANU to work on this project seemed strangely serendipitous. Like, what project would be out there? I never thought I would find anything that would call all of those skills into one place. And somehow all of these hats were one, a wonky hat at that. The brief was to make a digital interface to explore the project that is Performing Transdisciplinarity, a project filled with sound, image, and text media that I was, and as an artist and art historian, consistently trying to bring together. When I came on board, the way this media was accessed was through a database authored with great care and detail by Christina Clark, which brought together an incredible amount of research and importantly presented a huge amount of additional data that had been collated on the material gathered in this book. So I'm going to show you what I mean when I say that. Is that here? No, this one. Okay. So eventually, like, it was first, it took some time before, oh, here we go. No, excuse me. Let me just do this. No, I don't. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it was migrated over to a platform called Airtable. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at the Airtable version, you can see maybe some of what we would have been discussing in prior papers, the volume of data. So there's 4 volumes, as we've previously discussed, and 25 what we came to call song sets, because there were a number of songs per set that were per illustration that were presented. And so in this database, we can kind of follow through the song set numbers that we gave each song set, dependent on the volume first, and then the song in the volume, the number of the song in the volume, the title of that group, so it's the title of the whole song set, the volume information and its page, pagination, the illustration, the plate details, and the artist, the engraver, the year, the inscription, a description potentially, image keywords, texts which refer to this image, other works of art quoted, also additional images and more images, because obviously each page has a separate image, then the incipit information, the author information for the songs, etc. And it honestly keeps going for a long time. I'm not going to read through all of these because we would be here till the end of the day. So there's clearly a lot of data, which was being collected so carefully by Christina Clark, and also additional tables that were made for things like subjects, related works of arts, bibliographical, etc. So, oh no, that's not mine. Excuse me. Okay.
Sorry, Pia, I think you just have to stop the share and then read.
Oh. Is there a way I can share the whole screen? Yes, that's what I want. Did I do that? Yeah, I did that. Thank you. That's much. I know how to use technology. Okay, so so in there were lots of different kinds of media. There was sound in the form of MP3 recordings of music. There were JPEGs that were photographs of the notation. There were MP3s, recordings of the diction. There was also music data. Then there was images. On the images, there were JPEGs, photographs of the illustrations, and also image data. And similarly with the text, except additionally we had transcription of the text as well. So when so if sorry, I'm running 2 systems at the same time because we couldn't work out how to share notes. Okay, so in addition to linking data from within the song sets to resources like the Getty Art and Architecture Thesaurus, there were also biographical articles and other writing that was being developed about the material. Robert said something about blue sky thinking to me early days. And it helped me tune in with the conversations that were being had already. And I was inspired to find connections with my prior research into the history of instrument design and building, in thinking about how an interface might be developed to navigate this media. That possibly set me down a rabbit hole. So when I looked at material through the material in the volumes, I couldn't help but feel like I was watching some 1800s version or 1700s version of MTV. Are these songbooks actually an early version of music videos? the representations of sexual and physically intimate encounters made me recall the sexualization and objectification that went on in music videos, especially during my era in the 1990s. Also the kind of romantic narratives that might have been enacted. And I started thinking about how narratives and songs from this book might be reenacted to study and discuss their contemporary relevance. So the reference led me down a rabbit hole in thinking about the database and its contents as a contemporary music release. Like, if we were to put this out in our contemporary current age, what would a producer do, or what would this be as a contemporary cultural object? And I was thinking about how artists in contemporary times release something and invite people to remix their music. So digital humanities scholars, composers, media artists, and content creators could be invited to explore the database to create new media entirely that works to represent new perspectives on Choix de Chansons database. These mashups, if you like, could pull from a close study to bring into focus cloud formations, for example, which are, like, you can find actually lots of clouds are tagged in the image data on the website. Or perhaps they could make in developing, say, an atmospheric study of the songbook, or perhaps feminist rewriting of the pictorial narratives might seek to reconcile and contextualize its sexual violence. So my mind went to mimetic critical reworkings, like the understandably forgotten remixes of R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet from 2005 to 2012. The 91-minute musical soap opera or hip opera with the protagonist Kelly discovering his lover is having an affair while hiding in the closet. Kelly, already contested figure in the music industry due to his treatment of women, already being debated in court. This series of releases were studied and critiqued through remixes by web content creators and artists like Kendra Flemons, aka Showho1234, which discussed through machinima reenactments the sort of problematic content in R. Kelly, but also just made fun of it. Gentry Sayers discusses the distinctions between media studies, where my training as a practitioner might be more grounded, and digital humanities. He points out that both fields have drawn from different histories, and I quote, "In digital humanities, studies of texts from the 1800s or earlier are quite common for numerous reasons. These texts are readily available in electronic form and thus conducive to computational analysis. In media studies, research tends to move from 1800s forwards and also focus on non-textual forms such as sound, images, video, and games. Aside from these differences in substance and period, popular definitions of each field suggest a difference in technique." 2, whereas media studies treats media and technologies as objects of inquiry, digital humanities integrates them into its methods. Or if media studies is about media and technologies, then digital humanities works with them. Sayers, you can read on from his very helpful introduction, which basically provided a pivot point for me to realize what is my role in this project. Do I, if I consider where an electronic media artist situates themselves in this exchange, I would have to emphasize the need to produce new content or more media, creative media. So of course I was seeking to represent media, the media of Choix de Chansons by producing more media. I had to go back to the brief though, to realize that making more media was probably not the ideal place to start. Possibly we could go there next after we finish this this conference. I invite everyone to join me. So the brief being, and I quote, through multifaceted research on an exemplary songbook, this project aims to create a multimedia digital interface for linking deep disciplinary knowledge and the innovative recreation of sounds, sensibilities, and social mores of 18th century France. So I had to go back to the media, not the drawing board, the media, because that's where it all was. And this of course had me sort of actually find some helpful references from colleagues on the project and in the Centre of Digital Humanities in thinking about how people are already recreating and producing critical digital editions. It's what I found was challenging though was the multimodal nature of these songbooks. We were looking at material that was not just print driven, it was image driven, and then there was also this music. So one example that was in development at the time, and I might just see where I'm at time, probably not a hell of a lot of time to go, but I might just try and demonstrate this because it's super interesting. But this was in development while I was on the tail end of this project. And now that I look back, because I hadn't actually gone to see what the site ended up looking like until now, and I'm glad that I didn't, because it's interesting. It has some really great comparison points to our own, and I won't be looking under the hood. I was saying to my to Katrina, she asked me what they're actually using, and I was like, I'm scared to look because I will just be disappointed in myself if I look too closely. So this is the Furnace and Fugue, which is which was released I think in 2020, late 2020 or 2021, and it's particularly interesting because it presents the same sound, image, and text. It's a digital edition of Michael Mayer's Atlanta Fugians from 1618 with scholarly commentary. So lots of similar elements to ours. And if I go into the digital contents, it actually looks different on this browser though. So just pointing that out. Digital edition, and so I'd say the music's probably a bigger point of difference. I mean, the content, everything is different, but in terms of how they chose to present it. So you can see the comparative view, digital edition, original. Let's stay on the comparative view because it's most interesting, and we can play music and mix it. And you can read along with it. You can also fast forward, go to discourse and read the text that accompanies the song, etc. So there are some interesting similarities, I'd say, with this project, and definitely well worth an explore, even if you just feel like mixing strange choral music. So yeah, so I suspect this might be a sub-narrative for the digital humanities. I know it is actually, because I've talked about it a lot. So the issues around preservation and caretaking come into play in how decisions were actually made obviously how any decisions are made in the digital humanities. You have to think about those components. So while you're making something that may go towards preserving an historical object, and sort of maybe revivifying or re-inviting discussion about this long forgotten, perhaps, cultural object, the thing you make is far more fragile and difficult to maintain. Technological infrastructures, staff, and digital literacies, to name, are just like a few of the components that need to go into how we think about a living document like this. So content management systems like WordPress are not only smart platforms to work within, because half of the websites online use this back-end system, this content management system to present. So maybe even some of you have had some experiences putting content on WordPress, but also because the Centre for Digital Humanities actually already has its own WordPress server that they maintain, and that pretty much sealed the deal for me in thinking about the platform, which necessarily gave me constraints, which were like what I had always been looking for. Like coming back to the ground, some solid ground to stand on. So yeah, so what I thought I would do just briefly is just kind of run through some of the elements in the website so that we can see. And actually, Robert, can you tell me how much time I have left?
Well, I think we can go a little bit over. We're 25 past 12.
Okay, so like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll make it 2 minutes. So we have different ways to browse, and that became important, but probably the most, I'd suspect, would be interesting to find out, most popular would be through song sets, which is a list of all of the song sets, which you can go through in consecutive order. If I choose one and just take you through that song set, we can find how this is laid out. We have, because there are multiple editions and the illustrations are different within each edition, we have lots of different links to see the images. There's the Chantilly edition, and there's also the 1773 edition, and then you can also compare those editions. You have your image description, the artist, engraver, plate signature, and all of those image related data on the left-hand side underneath that image. And what we actually ended up realizing in the layout of this site was that it was the book already offered a strategy to sort of break down these really important different media into sections or columns, as we would say in web layout. So we had images, we had music, and we had text, or sound, image, and text. So yeah, so we can listen to this music. We can also listen to the diction involved in you can listen to them at the same time or not. You can go through the music metadata. You can read along with the song transcription. And importantly, I'll just get her to, I started a lecture at 9 a.m. with her running in the background, and I couldn't find where she was because I had too many tabs open. but yeah, so then underneath all of these sort of like kind of reproductions of the content in there is this incredible you know, sort of chest of treasures, being all of the data that's been collected. And I think that that is like where I'd like to employ you to explore further, and to find connections, because a lot of this data is linked. Like, for example, within the tags that come up, say, for instance, if we were looking for male nudes, we could find all of these. I'm sure there's pages of not as many as I thought. Female knows more, of course. So yeah, so I mean, that sort of gives you an idea of the breakdown of the song set, and I won't go any further because we're out of time, but I thank you for your attention.